Señorish-SMTN.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 182. I'm your host, Spencer Presley, and joining me is... I'm about to be very honest. I'm very glad that it's just not me. So I've been doing like solo shows for I think like a month now due to my move. So Michelle, thank you so much for being any kind of guest. Like obviously you're a special guest because you're here, but I've just been stuck in my apartment alone for way too long. And I just needed the I needed some form of humanity that wasn't just the comment sections telling me GGs and Fs and Ws.
Yeah, that sounds. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I can.
And also it was very good timing as we're both moving, so we both enjoy the fun leisure activity of when you're moving, you're either moving, sleeping, or being too tired to do either.
Yeah, that's basically. I'm pretty fortunate that I had a lot of people to help me with this and moving, because my parents were very good at helping me with that, so I appreciate it.
Shout out to mom and dad in the chat.
Yep.
How much like stuff did you end up having? Because I know like for me, my big thing was like I've obviously been collecting for the better part of like a decade and a half now, but like when I like saw it all really boxed up in one area of like the house, I was like, oh, I do have a problem.
Yeah, because I've been wanting to like get into game collecting. I haven't really done much. I basically just buy physical games that I want. So I didn't have that much in terms of games to get, but I definitely have a decent few boxes sitting over there that still need unpacked.
So just because I'm a weird like game collector in the sense of I enjoy collecting physical media for like a lot of different things, but I'm definitely not the kind of guy who's like, oh dude, I gotta own every, like I'm not a full setter for anything. Full setters like break my mentality. So for you, if you had to have like one thing that you enjoy collecting the most, what would it be and why?
I don't know. It probably would just be video games because I just like playing video games.
Oh no, now you gotta be that guy. You gotta pick a system. You gotta be like, all right, am I gonna be the cool guy who wants to collect Xbox One games, or am I gonna be the weird guy who collects the complete Wii collection?
I was gonna say I'm gonna be like Scott the Woz and get the entire North American Wii U set. I don't know. I think like I'd be down with collecting the Wii collection. Honestly, the Wii's my favorite console. It's what I grew up with, so
oh my gosh.
that'd just be. I know that's kind of insane considering how much garbage there is.
It's just, yeah, it's one of those things. If I remember when I first saw what a complete Wii collection looked like, that's when it scared me. Like, I genuinely think the Wii might have one of those weird libraries where it has 10% of its library is good, and the other 90% you'd never want to touch. But there are weird little things for it. Like, did you see last month, actually, 2 new physical Wii games came out?
Yeah, I heard about one of them. I didn't know there were 2.
Yeah, so it was first announced as Shakedown Hawaii was getting a Wii and a Wii U release. The Wii U release is in August, and as a little last-minute surprise, the developer put out Shakedown Hawaii's, I guess, previous game, Retro City Rampage, so they both got Wii physical disc.
I didn't realize it was a sequel to Retro City Rampage. I really liked that game. I had it on 3DS.
It's kind of weird. It is clearly like they're very heavily inspired by each other, but like there's just nothing story wise. That game actually is a really interesting development, where it was almost going to be a sequel. Like it was going to be you played as the player from Retro City Rampage, all aged up and blah blah blah. And just as development went by, he was just like, let's just kind of separate it from it. But obviously, like it still super plays. Like Shakedown Hawaii is really fun. The only weird stipulation with those releases is because all of those systems are still region locked. He could only get them printed in Europe. So if you didn't have like a region free or a European Wii, you wouldn't be able to play it. I had a weird speaking of collecting it before we do into proper introductions. If you couldn't tell everybody, not a lot of news this week. I had a weird dilemma that's still kind of going on in my head of limited run games put out this week not Mutant Muds. They put out the Atui collection. It's a physical 3DS game of like 5 different eShop titles, and like I'm in this weird spot of like I like the developer, I like almost all of those games in the collection, and it's like more than likely going to be the last physical 3DS game, but I just can't push it because like I'm not that nostalgic for the 3DS that I can't justify it in my head. It's like the weirdest thing of like I like most of the games, I like the developer, but because I'm not in love with the 3DS, I'm just like, do I really need it for $35? Which is hilarious because I'm literally sitting here right now looking at my 5 different 3DS systems I have.
Yeah, because like I love the 3DS, but at this point for me, my 3DS is basically exclusively used for Kid Icarus Uprising and Persona Q2 when I finally play it.
Now that is something you need to get into collection. You need to be the one guy who has the complete Kid Icarus Uprising AR card collection.
I've seen like all of those cards. Like I don't own any of them, but yeah, I don't. It's so weird to think that such a stupid feature for the 3DS. Like the one game that got all of it was just Uprising.
Yeah, it was in that weird era, because even the PlayStation Vita had the same thing. Of every PlayStation Vita system came with AR cards. Well, besides AR cards, something that's going to stick around much longer is probably our love of Persona and Megaten. So, Michelle, how did you get introduced to this series? What was your like first kind of kickoff, and where are you at now in terms of like games that really stand out for you, and like how much you kind of interact with the fandom?
So, for me with Persona, I initially got into Persona 4 Golden through a Let's Play by a YouTuber who goes by Super Genius, who unfortunately I don't really think does videos anymore. But I discovered his Let's Play Persona 4 Golden. I watched it, and it didn't take long before I was watching for the game and not him. Not to say he wasn't entertaining, he was great, but
I see why he stopped doing videos now. Everyone just came to this realization in the comments.
Yeah, I don't know, I got so immediately sucked into Persona 4 Golden to a point where I think it was a birthday or something, I got a Vita with Persona 4 Golden because I wanted to play it that much. Then from there, I got super excited for Persona 5, played that, fell in love with it. A few years after P5, then I finally got P3 FES. I played that. It made me very angry, but it was a great game. I hate Tartarus. And then Royal came out. It's my favorite video game ever made, and that's basically my history with Persona. That, and also well over 100 hours into Persona 4 Dancing All Night, because, I don't know, it was fun.
You will never need to justify any Persona dancing love here. Like, there was someone was talking to me, I guess there's going to be like a Megaten like speedrun community thing sometime this fall for like fundraising, and I was like, man, if there was like any sort of community around the speedrun of platinuming Persona 4 Dancing, like that would be my shit. Like I just enjoy platinuming that game for fun, but yeah, do not have any shame here. We stan all the dancing games on this podcast, or at least anyone who doesn't like them like gnarly. I bully him into buying it, which I think he bought 3 and 5 and finally, which I guess also he bought 4 as well with it, but I don't think he's touched it because he's a coward, and he's just too scared to show his effeminate dancing side.
Exactly. Yeah, because I remember P4D was the first game I ever platinumed on my PlayStation account, and then the second one I ever platinumed was Persona 5 Royal. So, yeah, that's how much I barely use my PlayStation stuff. My PS4 is basically exclusively used for Persona 5 Royal, Danganronpa V3, and YouTube, and that's it.
So when you played vanilla P5, what did you play it on?
I played it on PS4. I got a PS4 for P5.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I've never owned a PS3. I got a PS4 and Persona 5. It came with a copy of Uncharted 4. I bought that like well over a year ago. I've never played Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4 is a weird one of like, as a game, it's a great game, but that's such a culmination of a series ending. It'd be really weird to recommend someone just jump into it like with no knowledge of the series.
See, that's the funny thing, because not too long ago, Sony did like their thing that was like, for quarantine, here's like free games, and it was Journey and the Uncharted collection. So I own all 4 Uncharted games. I've just never played them.
Clearly, you're being a man of refined taste, and what you want is to play Uncharted Golden Abyss on the Vita first, and then you'll get to the rest of them because they are cowards and didn't bring it over to the collection.
Hell yeah.
That I will say, actually, it's really weird. Uncharted Golden Abyss is in that weird step of it takes place earliest in the timeline, is the second longest game in the whole series. Like, I think it has like something like 40 plus chapters, and is better to play than 1, but not better to play than 2. But then obviously it's kind of like one of those things of like, well, I wouldn't recommend, like, because like going back to the first Uncharted, it very much feels like those early like launch window PS3 games of like, whoa, it's next gen, but whoa, it doesn't play good.
Yeah.
Yeah, PS3 is one of those weird ones of like, I'm super nostalgic for that because that was the first system I ever like saved up for and bought myself, which is hilarious because of how grossly expensive those systems were at the time. But yeah, I'll always be just like super nostalgic just because of like stuff like Metal Gear Solid or like all the weird like first party IPs that started through their like Little Big Planet, and as we were dunking on last week, PlayStation All Stars, like how much I just played that, and like it was also great because it was one of those times of, I don't know how much you ever really played a lot of like the PS2 generation of stuff, but in the late, I guess no, it'd be early 2010s where they were just doing HD collections for everything and anything. Like that was my jam. Like any HD collection that came out, I was like, fuck it, let's go. Splinter Cell HD collection, all right, whatever, I don't care. I'll just play any HD collection. Just because as a kid, when you're like don't have a ton of money, buying a $40 to $30 game that's like 3 to 4 games in there. It's just like, oh, that's like that value is so good. Like, how do you not justify it?
It's perfect. Yeah. I lived in I during that era. I was growing up with a Wii, which meant the term HD didn't exist to me. I liked Wii Sports. I had fun because I owned a PS2 before my Wii, and the thing about it though was I was a dumb child, and basically every game I owned on the PS2 was shovelware. I'd say the first game I bought for my PS2 that wasn't shovelware was many, many years later when I finally bought Persona 3 FES and dug out my old PS2.
So, kind of going back to Persona and stuff with it. So obviously, finding that Let's Play was like your introduction to that.
Yeah.
Have you had any sort of draw, or has anything from the Megaten side really kind of caught your attention, or are you just sort of like, I think a lot of people right now in that phase of either waiting for Nocturne HD to come out or waiting for SMT5?
Yeah, that's where I am, because basically I've always, like, ever since like I started learning more about things outside of just Persona, learning about SMT, I've wanted to play it because it looks interesting to me, and it seems like the kind of thing I'd really enjoy. It's just I don't know. I was more just in the near future. I was more just interested in finishing the whole Persona series, and what's it? Yeah, now I'm at that point where I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna wait for Nocturne HD and just get it on Switch probably.
So I'll be curious because I don't think I've actually talked to any about this since it got announced. As someone who owns a PS4 and a Switch, what draws you to getting it on a Switch more than PS4? Because for me, it's one of those things of I've obviously played it before, and I feel like for me, even graphics aside, that game isn't super indicative of like something I'd want to play portably, and because of it being in HD, you kind of be like, well, I want to experience this as visually like as nice looking as it can be, on top of the fact that I don't know, it's just like as a Switch, like as the Switch, like, it's really funny. I love playing RPGs, and I've always said one of my biggest criticisms of the Switch is it has terrible exclusive RPGs, like, because there's very, very few. But like when games like them hit really hard, like when TMS came out on Switch, I ate that up like it was like fast food, because I thought it was like so perfect, the pacing for it. But with something like Nocturne, I wonder if people are gonna kind of have that taste of like, oh, this is a much slower, more methodical kind of game, where I wonder if they're gonna like, okay, well, I guess we're just gonna play this docked.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason I just get it on Switch is simply just because I use my Switch more than my PS4. Like, I just barely touch the PS4 for, like, the only reason, the last game I played on it was P5R, and I don't know, it's just that I just prefer the Switch in general. It's just what I use all the time, and also I like the Pro Controller.
Do you think there are any other games that are going to come out down the line on PS4 that will tempt you to ever go back to it?
Um, because of the type of game it is, I will probably get Scramble on PS4 so it can be nice in HD because like that game I care about that a bit more, mainly just for 60 FPS versus 30.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
I've told so many people this. It's like
Yeah.
once you play the demo for both, or like just get your hands on it, like you play because a lot of people did the same thing as me. Played it on Switch. Oh, this is pretty good. It's like playing PS3 Persona 5. Like it's pretty good. Looks pretty nice. And then you
Yeah.
just have like the Galaxy Brain moment on PS4. Like oh my god, this game looks terrible.
Yeah. Cause like I played the demo on Switch. But yeah, seeing the game in PS4 just it definitely is probably what I'd prefer to get it on. Even though playing Persona 5 on my Switch was very surreal. And I'll never uninstall that demo. That Japanese demo is always going to be there.
Yeah, thank God we're not living in the cursed age of when Nintendo was like, you got 5 plays. We're hard
Yeah.
wiping this off your system.
Yeah, I remember that. I still have a few of those 3DS demos that still have like plays on them for me.
My least favorite was because of how unfrequently I would play my 3DS. I would turn it on and be like, "You got 3 new presents," and I'm like, "I don't want to play Kirby Robobot demo. Like, why did you download this for me?"
Yeah.
All right, so kind of going back to with Nocturne and Five Force. So for you personally, as someone who's pretty much just stuck with a lot of the more recent Persona titles, where are you at hype wise or enthusiasm wise for Nocturne HD and SMT5 after the most recent media trailers?
Cause like anyone if they want, they can go over to AussieX YouTube channel and see that's where our reaction is because I was in that. I very much got excited because like even though I've never played it, it's the type of thing it just interests me. I'm excited. Like I feel like I'm more excited for SMT5 than Nocturne, just because like it's a new game and the fact that I don't know the fact that Royal was so good, it makes me excited to see what else Atlas can do in the modern age of RPGs or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you're usually always going to be in that side of like, okay, whatever the HD thing is kind of cool, but the new one's going to steal the most attention. I think you're
mm,
probably more in the minority, whereas a lot
mm,
of people after Nocturne's announcement were so surprised because that was such an out of left field thing.
yeah.
Like everyone had always been asking me, especially be like, "Are we ever going to get these PS2 games again?" It's like it would be so easy to HDify them, but like there's such a
Mm,
divergence, it'd be hard to really make sense of them all. And me never really thinking that they would bring them from PS2 to like multiplat was one of the big key factors there. But once I saw more of 5 and
mm,
comparing it with Nocturne, it made a lot more sense because like I've told so many people it's like because like you're excited for 5, you're not going
mm,
and playing 4 because even though 4 is probably going to be thematically pretty similar to 5,
mm.
like in terms of how it's played or the art style, it's like those are very different looking games. Like this is a
Yeah.
very like kind of low budget 3DS RPG, even
Hmm.
comparing it to something that came out in the early 2000s, but because it has that all 3D modeling thing for it, it just
Hmm.
stands up a whole lot better, and HDifying it is probably infinitely cheaper.
Yeah, because like it's also funny, just like they're kind of sort of the same series, so it's funny comparing Nocturne to Persona 3 and seeing how much worse Persona 3 looks
Yeah, what's
just by
really funny is
comparison.
especially because most people don't know all of those games used the same engine.
Mm.
There was a game that came out back on the Dreamcast. I think it was like in the year 2000 or might have been like 99 in Japan. It's called Makken X.
Hmm.
And it was developed by Atlas and stuff for it. And if you look at it, you're like, oh my god, this is just every Atlas PS2 game ever.
Hmm.
So what's so funny about it is like looking at the like evolution of that engine in terms of them. Okay, let's get grander or have less visual like kind of a variety in things, and then when the Persona 3 and 4 game hit of like, okay, let's simplify everything really hard, but we're gonna make the
Yeah,
game much longer.
yeah, and yeah, it's also I think to me at least playing it, it was noticeable like because I've been playing through the answer recently, which yeah, and doing that, it was just really funny, like looking at PS2 Aegis next to what is still a decent looking Jack Frost model, and I was like, these are not from the same era, even though one came first.
Yeah, it's really apparent when you kind of hold them all next to each other. But I mean, I guess it
Yeah.
just goes to show like how much blood they were able to squeeze out of that stone in terms of like
Hmm.
even like just all of those games, like when you compare Persona 3 to Persona 4, like how different those games look because of their coloring, and then obviously
Yeah.
Digital Devil Saga, Devil Summoner, and Nocturne, like all these games, just like wow, like they really got like the most out of their stuff for it. Especially when you kind of compare of like I think with a lot of people when Persona 4 Golden came to Steam, a lot of those models are still just like the base models from the PS2
Hmm.
game that just got upresed for Vita, and then on
Yeah.
PC, like those models are a lot more kind of simplified, but I think they're kind of like in the sense of like when you looked at like Final Fantasy 9 models compared to Final Fantasy 7 models, it's like
Hmm.
yeah, they're obviously chibified and stuff for it, but there's a lot more kind of like little details people don't obviously pick up their first go.
Hmm.
So, kind of stepping back a little bit forward, just because we were sort of talking about this, it's been a weird summer for releases. It's definitely been a
Yeah.
weird summer for game announcements and stuff for it. But what have you been playing recently? Besides, what? Jesus, in my head I act like because like when all the quarantine stuff happened, like right as P4 P5R came out, I still kind of
Hmm.
think that Royal wasn't that long ago. But then I look at the calendar and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, it's August. But yeah, so like,
Yeah.
what have you been playing this summer or recently?
Um, I mean, obviously I've been busy moving, but basically during the move, I spent like 3 days straight just playing Catherine Full Body, which I very much enjoyed. I finished my first route of it, which I got Catherine K, and it was a great game. I freaking loved it.
That's a weird one for me, especially as someone who was such a fan of Persona 5.
Hmm.
That you never played it. Obviously, you didn't have a PS3 or a 360. I'm assuming, but
Yeah, no.
never played it on PC. Never played it on PS4. Like, what was it about it being on Switch that kind of tempted you more than the PS4 release last year?
Um, I don't know. It's like I always wanted to play Catherine because I remember way back when I tried watching a Let's Play of it because I knew it was like, oh, it's this game by the Persona developers. But the problem was I was 14 and Catherine's not exactly for a 14-year-old, so I completely lost interest because it's just the subject matter just didn't appeal to me. Now I'm older and I get it more. I think just I don't know. It was just I probably would have gotten it on PS4 eventually. Um, it was just I don't know if it was gonna be on Switch. I just was like, yeah, I'll get it here. Um, because like I didn't, because like didn't the Steam release come out like basically around the time Full Body was announced
The
anyway?
Steam release came out a month before Full Body in Japan, otherwise known as "Why would you do this?"
Yeah, so I mean, just knowing Full Body was already gonna be a thing. I was like, I'm not gonna bother getting this on PC. Um, so I was like, all right, I'll probably just wait and get Full Body. And then a lot of time passed, and then it got announced for Switch, and I was like, all right, I'll wait for the Switch version. And then my boyfriend bought it for me for my birthday.
Thanks, boyfriend,
Yay!
making those important life decisions. Thankfully, your initial takeaway from Captain was like me. I remember when I played it, I just graduated junior year of high school,
Hmm.
and playing that game it
Hmm.
gave me such a weird revelation of like, oh man, I if I was in this situation with my relationship, I would totally have gone see Catherine, which I did in the game, and made
Hmm.
me to actually do a lot of introspecting for my life, where I was, and especially my relationship at the time. My ex at the time was actually on like a trip in Japan, so I'd been spending like almost all the summer without really talking to them very much at all. And it had this like big thing of like when I beat Catherine, I was like, "Whoa, this game was amazing!" and like really hit me like super hard. And then immediately was like, "Oh, I gotta break up with my girlfriend now when she comes back." So I'll always remember Catherine as like this game that's like super important and like really means a lot to me because like it led to such a big moment of like kind of like introspection. And I even like there's a blog post like I put up like somewhere out there on like my old blog spot that I like wrote this big article about like why Catherine basically made me break up with my girlfriend.
Because for me, yeah, because the way I decided to play the game my first time was I was like, I'm just gonna answer everything
Yeah,
honestly,
that's the best
and
way to do it. Is like don't think of it like going for good. Don't think of it as going for
yeah,
bad. Like it's most fun your first playthrough when you just be like, okay, I'm gonna legit answer these questions all honestly.
yeah, like, and I knew I kind of wanted Catherine K because it's the non douchebag thing to do, but yeah, I don't know, it was I ended up I think I ended the game with my meter like halfway across blue. So yeah, I ended with her, and then I looked up the best ending on YouTube because of course I didn't get that. And at some point I'll probably do the rest of the endings.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things, especially with Catherine Full Body, is it definitely gives a lot more kind of gray to all of the romance options. Obviously, Rin's new, so she didn't really need as much graying. But like in the vanilla game, one of the big problems was, hey, are you going to go for K Catherine? Okay, she's boring, and that's a dumb choice, and that's how the game definitely kind of treats the situation. Well, then it compares C Catherine is like, well, she's exciting and fun. It's like, yeah, it's cheating, but like your girlfriend's boring, so like, what's the big deal? So
and also, I have a thing for blondes, so you know.
Yeah, so thankfully they made some big like steps in terms of like changing that up with it in Full Body of like. And obviously it varies. Like I think the younger Catherine, like K Catherine flashbacks are definitely ham-fisted and aren't really the most graceful, but they at least help get away from that feeling of like, oh cool, I've been dating this girl and I'm in a rut.
Yeah, because I basically could immediately tell because I knew very little about the original game other than like the basics of what it was. So, like, even without knowing what that was, I could immediately tell that the flashbacks had to have been added in Full Body. So, and, like, I definitely enjoyed them, but it is... I just like Cheerleader Catherine. That's all that's all I cared about.
Oh, man. Yeah, God bless all those text message PNGs.
Yeah, were those also added in Full Body?
That was a fun moment for me, especially as someone who like had a super ghetto ass phone at the time. Of like, man, I never had a girlfriend like send me like pictures like this. Like this is so unrealistic. And then the older I get, be like, oh no, this is just different people who do different things. But,
yeah.
Did you have any other kind of like takeaways, whether it be with the gameplay or the other characters? Because I know Catherine has like lots of like kind of big takeaways for it in terms of like the side characters. Like I know like for me one of the big ones that always stand out is, well, I guess I have two. The one more personal one for me is I always, and this still goes for Full Body, I really wish there was some way they could have made a route that explored Johnny and K Catherine, because like they set up so many like little breadcrumbs there and it never pays off.
Yeah, like I really liked Johnny. I just wish there was a bit more to him.
But yeah, and the other one obviously with the stuff they kind of did with Erica, I always found so interesting, and I think for the rest of my life I will forever have told you so moment just because of all the stupid. I don't know how much of the original backlash you remember from when Full Body came out in Japan. People were the pre-transition Erica stuff and just being like, oh, this game is so destructive to the LGBT movement. And stuff. And everyone just be like, just wait. Like, just wait till it comes out, because it's like it was like it was bad at the time, but especially because of how vocal people were, and then how no one ever wanted to apologize, just made it look so much worse.
That's the thing, because, like, whenever I beat Catherine, I immediately tweet. I was like, I just beat Catherine Full Body. It was great. I loved it. It's not transphobic.
Yeah, it's, like, sad to say that, because I remember at the time, people legit were taking those claims on face value of, like, the competitive Catherine scene. Were like, well, Catherine's transphobic now. Game's dead. I'm like, really? Like, all it takes is like a reset era like thread for people to just throw a Game Boy in the trash.
That was the thing, because like I looked at it and like as soon as I heard that, I was like, "That's not true, is it? This is bullshit," and it was.
Yeah, like I mean, and obviously as like a straight white dude in the middle of fucking nowhere, obviously my takes on like trans representation is pretty low on the bar of importance. But what I find so funny about it is like, so many things of like people thinking like how destructive it is showing Erica pre-transition, but it's like, guys, you know, people just don't come out of the womb transitioned, right? Like they weren't just going to be like, guys, it's like, because like obviously wherever the hell in the world and time Catherine takes place, it's like no one's society is at the point yet where we're so progressive and liberal that like like Erica wasn't gonna have a flashback in like elementary school, be like, guys, I gotta transition, and they all go, let's go, let's do it.
Go.
It's like there's no really easy way to kind of do it, and like obviously from a storytelling way, this might be conveyed as lazy and whatnot, but it's like, hey, guess what? A really great way to signify time, and similar with the flashbacks, is like they're all taking place in school, because school is a great representation and story of time passing, because not everything can be like One Piece and Naruto where there's a time skip arc. Like when you kind of want to have a time skip make sense without having to put too much thought into it, it's like, okay, well, they're over 18 now, so a large enough gap of time has happened.
Yeah. Because playing the game, Erica was absolutely my favorite character. I really liked her.
I will always love the fact that Erin Fitzgerald not only kills it as Erica, but also as the host.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, she's Trish. Because I adore Erin Fitzgerald. Because like she does a similar voice for a lot of roles, but like listening to Erica, I never just thought Chie, because she's just kind of able to differentiate them enough. And of course my favorite Erin Fitzgerald role of Genocide Jack, but.
Oh my god, yeah, that was there was definitely like a mid 2000, like maybe like from 2012 to 2016 or so, of just like all of my favorite games I was into at the time, like had Erin Fitzgerald somewhere. Like she was Noir from Hyperdimension Neptunia, like her and like Danganronpa and like all this other stuff where it's like, oh dude, she's just everywhere.
Yeah, because I remember the Genocide Jack twist happened, and immediately I was like, I know that lisp. I know who that is.
So we gotta you've now played into my trap card. We now have to legally, we're forced to talk about Danganronpa now.
Damn it!
So
I didn't want to do that.
What the hell got you started into Danganronpa? Because I'm still waiting for somebody to have a more weirder introduction to the series than me. Because I'm a masochist apparently, because I started with 2. And not like I started when 2 came out with 1. I played completion 2, and that's how I got started in the series.
Amazing. Because for me, I don't know, I just got into Danganronpa through Persona. Like, the fandoms overlapped enough that I kept hearing about this Danganronpa thing just from being a Persona fan. And what I ended up doing, I ended up just seeing the openings to each game on YouTube, and I was like, alright, I dig this style, I want to play this thing. So I went in knowing basically nothing about it other than that murder ensues. And yeah, I just bought the games on Steam and I just fell in love.
So you would have played them after the Steam release. Interesting. So what did you get into them, like 2016? 17?
Yeah, 2017 I think sounds about right. 2016, 2017, something like that.
So you had a Vita, but what made you want to go for the Steam versions? I'm really curious about that.
I don't know, it's just what was accessible to me. Cause like, I mean, like, I love my Vita, but if I have an excuse to not use it, I'll get it on Steam.
I don't know, just especially with, like, visual novels, it's like RPGs and visual novels are the one thing, like, if I have a choice of playing it on the Vita, with the, like, obvious thing with visual novels, just because, like, having that portable, like, that, like, one-handed gameplay thing with it, like I can just kind of do it on my commute or work and stuff like that, it was just always too good to like really pass up. And like I have a couple visual novels on Switch and PS4, but it's just one of those things of like that ease of use, and especially because obviously at the time when I was playing those games they were only on Vita and PSP in Japan, so it was a lot harder for me to kind of justify with it, because it'll always be that weird thing of me of like, I don't know, like, in my head, I just can never get over the thought of, like, just sitting on a couch or sitting in front of my monitor and just, like, doing a visual novel that way. Like, but like, something about, like, doing it while I'm on the go or, like, at, like somewhere where, like, I can't be in front of my PS4 just makes it, like, infinitely, like, more fun. Like, one of, like, my favorite Danganronpa memories of all time that I think I've told before on here, but is, like, I was doing a class trial, like, I think it was Trial 3 in Danganronpa 2, in the middle of my school, my college was on lockdown for a shooter threat. And I was so caught up in it that I missed the entire school going on lockdown because of a shooter. And only after my second armed policeman walking past me, who didn't say anything to me, did I take my earphones out and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, the whole building's empty. They're like, there's a shooter active on the cave. I was like, oh, I guess I better go home.
I was too invested. Mikon was yelling at me.
I mean, listen, if I had to choose between be caught up in a school shooting like an episode of Degrassi or Danganronpa Trials, I'm gonna go Danganronpa Trials every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you did the Steam ports. I'm guessing for all 4 games.
I did Steam for 1, 2, and Ultra Despair Girls, and then I played the demo of V3 on my PC. It kept dropping frames, and I was like, all right, I'll buy this on PS4.
I can never really tell because I played them all on Vita. I always kind of forget how technically demanding V3 is, because obviously if you look at 1, 2, and 3, in screenshots they look very similar, but there are moments I forget where like V3 is like, wow, V3 is very pretty. They definitely they didn't use PS4 to its like maximum, because obviously they still had to have it run on the Vita at launch, but it is one of those things like, wow, yeah, V3 is like very, very like visually impressive.
Yeah, like it's a very nice, aesthetically pleasing game. I like the way, and like one of my favorite things about V3 is like just the way it looks, and its UI I consider to be on par with Persona 5, which is not something I say lightly. So.
Oh yeah, like those games all just have like such a like awesome, distinctive look and like visual flair to them that like I will never like get tired of just like looking or listening at them without even playing them. So
Yeah.
Time for 2 hard Danganronpa questions.
Ooh.
Number 1, rank from favorite to least favorite all the games in the series.
Oh, that's not hard. Okay, well, so I mean the bottom 2 are easy. My least favorite's V3, and then just above that is DR1.
Oh.
And then, because I tend to say that I like 2 more than UDG. It's more so just that, like, because I think 2 is more objectively better and more well put together. But on the other hand, UDG is my personal favorite thing ever because it's the Toko video game. So.
Starring guest stars that are obviously less important.
Yeah. But yeah, my ranking from best to worst is probably 2 UDG, 1 V3.
That's a very interesting choice, but I'll always love the fact that V3 is literally always people's top or bottom. Like, it's never, ever in between.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it goes V3 number 1, followed by 2 Ultra Despair Girls and 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I always kind of flip-flop between whether I want UDG to be 2 or 3, and it's so neck and neck that they might as well just kind of share the spot for it, because like I remember my experience playing that game was I had so many moments of like, well, this is actually really interesting and like unique for what they're trying to do just for like a spin-off. And also I constantly had this feeling while playing through the game of, holy fuck, this game is long. Like, you would have thought with them making a third-person shooter that like it was probably going to be 10 to 15 hours, not 30 plus hours.
Yeah, I mean, because for me playing it, I think it was my shortest ER game on my total playtime on Steam. But yeah, it's definitely longer than like I expected it to be.
Yeah, like that definitely standed out in that era of like with Persona 4 Dancing, of like spin-offs that are in genres you never expected or probably wanted, but it delivered way, way, way more than you would have thought. Like, another thing, like whether you enjoy playing Ultra Despair Girls or not, like the one thing I'll always give it so much credit for is I fucking love that game's soundtrack. That game's soundtrack is so good.
Which absolutely is like, my favorite in the series, yeah.
Which is like, it's weird to compliment a Danganronpa game for the soundtrack because, hey, guess what? There's not a bad soundtrack in the whole series.
Yeah, they're all great.
So then, now comes for the actual hard question for you. Are you fine with there being no more Danganronpa? And if you do want there to be more Danganronpa, how do you want the series to continue?
Okay. If it's dead here, I'm fine. That's not to say I wouldn't be excited for and play a Danganronpa 4.
I have to interject first. I find it interesting you view it as dead and not finished. I view Danganronpa as finished.
Yeah, finished, more so is what I mean. If it is to continue, basically, I just want it to be whole new story. Don't bring back Hope's Peak Academy. Don't bring back Makoto. Just entirely new thing with just a vaguely similar premise. Because, like, as much as I love the Hope's Peak arc and stuff like that, that to me just feels over. So if they are to do more, I want it to just be something new.
Now, did you hit that point pre V3, or was it definitely just kind of cemented in after the final act of the V3?
I think it was. I think for me it was after doing the ending of V3. I was like, you know what? Can we not bring back Junko and just make a new villain?
So,
Which
for me, I've always been in the case of I never thought of it as kind of dead and definitely more on the finish side. I remember one of my favorite things was a while ago. Gnarly wanted to do a video. I don't remember what got him busy or whatever, but he was going to do a video of like is Danganronpa dead or whatever. And what I thought was so funny about it was one of my big contentions with that. It's like, what do you mean the series is dead? The creators just stopped. Like, it wasn't like they wanted to do Danganronpa 4 and they were like, sorry guys, our most profitable series ever, we just can't do it. Like, I am not the biggest fan of Spike Chunsoft anymore. Like, my reputation for them has definitely gone down over the past couple of releases they've done. Like, they've definitely gone down in quality since the VLR team and Danganronpa team split off to 2Q. But I at least give them a lot of credit in the sense of they haven't, like, continued the series without them in a meaningful way. And by that, I mainly just mean, like... by that, I mean, like... The way those games kind of end with V3, it's like, it would be... I don't know, like, it would just feel sort of weird to do it after everything has been done already, on top of the fact that you know they're not going to bring back the main series creators. Because it's like, even though the main series creators, like, they love Danganronpa still, they clearly are working on their own stuff, and, like, they view it as done, so, like, why do you want to bring it back? My only contention has always been this, and this came up a couple of weeks back on our Discord, and ever since someone mentioned it, like, oh, that's so perfect, that's the only way I'd be fine with the series coming back and the series creator not having to touch it for it to be good, is if they did want to do something with it, I would love it if they had the balls to do Ultra Despair Girls 2.
Yeah.
That's, like, the only way that I'd be like, okay, like, a weird side thing like this, I give you enough carte blanche for, but anything else in the series, I'm like, I'm cool with it being done. Like, if Star Wars has taught us anything, we don't need series to continue for them to stay good.
Yeah, because my thing with like, I would love a UDG too, but also I'm scared of, like, if this is going to star Toko and Kamaru again, one of them's dying. They're not both surviving another game.
Oh my god, yeah. The amount of times in that game where I was like, how are all of these other people dying, but these two fucking knuckleheads with tits walking around being like, oh man, that was a tough one.
I was like, yeah, because my whole thing was, I was like, playing UDG the whole time, because I fell in love with both those characters hard in that game, and I was like, please don't die. Just don't die, please.
My biggest thing that I think would make, I don't know if this would make it a harder sell, but because I'm such a weirdo when it comes to, like, horror and co-op games, if they literally just made UDG 2 is, like, a sort of continuation, but you get to play as a co-op between the both of them, because that's, like, the one big thing. I'm amazed with all the ports that they never really did, and obviously, technically, like, they were limited in terms of having, like, one major character playable on screen at a time, but, like, it almost, like, kind of be like, like, it would have been so cool if, like, you could have actually, like, worked with the both of them, because they play so differently at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know, I just like UDG a lot.
So I gotta ask, because you're such a Toko nut, have you played, did you purposefully play on the lowest difficulty just so you could play as Toko more?
No, my first time through I played normal.
That's, like, one of those things, like, when I had that, like, found out, because one of the big contentions when that game got announced in Japan, this was probably before I even played the PC port, before UDG came out on Vita, one of the biggest things were Danganronpa fans were really excited for it, but they were worried it was going to be too action-heavy, or fans were worried that because it was made by a visual novel developer, that it wouldn't be a good enough action game. So the director came out and was like, hey, the game's really hard. Just letting you guys know the game is really hard. Well, like, in terms of, like, if you're coming at it from a visual novel player standard. Like, if you've played no action games, the game's going to be hard for you. Enough. Like, obviously, it's no Devil May Cry, but it's one of those things of, like, hey, at its default setting, this probably won't be fun for you. That's why the lowest difficulty isn't baby-ass baby mode. The lowest difficulty is, like, just God mode.
Yeah, because... I mean, the thing I did, because I love Toko so much, was I played normal, but I spent all of my money buying battery upgrades.
Oh my god. So, in terms of where you're at with the series for it, at least for me, like Danganronpa is one of those things of like I've always like it's always just been held super super high regards for me, but because it's been almost 3 years now since V3, which is kind of crazy to say. It's one of those weird series of like because it's on the back burner in terms of importance. Like I don't view this year being like the 10th anniversary of like meaning anything because I don't know about for you, but like do them like for you. Does the series like having like mobile ports and whatnot coming out like does that really do anything for you, or is it just kind of one of those games you're like I'm actively in the fandom, but like obviously because nothing of importance is coming out, you're not really doing much?
I mean, I've always actively just loved and talked about Danganronpa. I think for me, because like the mobile ports don't do like I wasn't gonna buy them. It was more so the main thing about the mobile ports that excited me was seeing all the art book stuff now being higher resolution that they put out, like all the scans and shit, because that was really cool to me. But for me, Danganronpa is just the kind of thing where it's like I love this, I talk about it constantly, but I don't know the anniversary as much as I was like, oh, it's been 10 years. It wasn't something that really impacted me that much, I guess.
I would love for someone at Spike Chunsoft to rationalize why they haven't ported that game to Switch. Because, like, they're not like Persona. Like, they're not locked in, like, an exclusivity contract, which is really funny. Like, it literally is just, I wonder if they're just too cheap to port it onto Switch. Because it's like, technically there's nothing stopping all four of those games from coming out. But I wonder if they're at the point now where they're like, oh, what if it's been too long? Like, if they think that they couldn't, like, get enough people to jump over. Because I personally don't know, like, are there people out there who are, like, break-free Danganronpa? Like, are there people out there who are like, oh my god, I've never experienced Danganronpa and I've been waiting for the Switch version. I've just never seen those people out there.
I think Break Free Persona was this weird culmination of just a bunch of really obnoxious shit coming together all at once, and I've never seen another series be like that. To me, I've only ever seen Persona like that.
God bless. Let's keep it that way. Yeah, like, so, like, I don't know, like, because for me, I don't know if you'd really feel the same, but, like, if they just announced all those 10th anniversary ports for all four games are coming to Switch, like, this fall, would it do anything for you? Because, like, for me, it'd be like, there's nothing they could add to those games outside of maybe, like, a director's commentary mode that I would be like, cool.
I could see myself buying them for the sake of owning them physically, for one, because I don't own any of them physically.
Oh, man, I have a great next topic for us talking about
physically. Oh, boy. I might buy them just for the sake of it, and I do enjoy replaying story-driven games. I mean, I've played across both Vanilla and Royal. I've played P5 3 times, so I don't know. I could see myself getting them.
You're something of a scientist yourself, I see.
Look, I am, at the very least, if they ported UDG, I would be guaranteed to buy it.
I remember seeing UDG at like 60 FPS was a really trippy moment for me, because playing that game on Vita, it doesn't run bad technically, but it is definitely one of those things like, oh, whoa, because like, when I played it, it was exclusive at the time, so there's not that comparison of then seeing it running. I will say I was a little bit tempted when it came to PS4 and PC to be like, oh, do I want this again? But I'm like, nah, I'm good. So what you mentioned, though, that kind of caught my attention, how do you feel about all the kerfuffle recently with the rights now going back to Spike Chunsoft and NIS America losing them for the English version of Danganronpa?
I didn't really hear about that at all.
Really?
So I don't have much of an opinion.
I am okay. Yeah. So I'll break it down for you because I'm kind of surprised you haven't. It's been especially in the specifically Danganronpa fandom, as well as if you're a console player. So you've played them primarily on PC with the exception of V3. PC has always been published by Spike. So NIS, I guess over the course of this month and next month, are going to lose the rights in order of V3 and then 1, 2, and UDG. So what this means is they are all going to be delisted from the store on PS4 and Vita. And hypothetically, Spike Chunsoft is going to be getting the rights and has the ability to put them back out physically if they want, but I highly doubt it because if anyone's ever paid attention, Spike Chunsoft putting out games physically, they just don't make money. So I think even with Danganronpa, they wouldn't like reprint the series. But a much cheaper and realistic thing, but people are still worried about, is then they would have to resubmit the digital versions of the games on PlayStation. The big problem with it is this. Spike Chunsoft straight up has, for their entire incarnation as a U.S. company and as a publisher, they have ignored their own Vita ports. Like, if there are Spike Chunsoft Vita games, in the West, they've been like, we don't need to put that out. Like, we're good. And it's, like, the most infuriating fucking thing ever. But the big worry about that is now, when those games get pulled from the Vita store, they're probably not going to get relisted on Vita, even though PS4 they probably will. So it's going to be one of those things of like, because I don't know how you really feel. For me, my experience in the Danganronpa fandom has been majority of people got into it on Vita, and that's where the nostalgia really is.
Yeah.
So if that version, like those cheaper digital versions are taken away, that's gonna really, really suck. Especially when, like, I don't know if you've looked at how much a copy of any physical Danganronpa game is. It is expensive.
I could believe it. Yeah, because I had heard. I did end up hearing about like the games getting delisted. I didn't realize that was why. I just happened to knew that was happening.
Yeah. So like. I own them all physically, so it's not that big of a deal for me, but it is one of those things that really sucks, especially just because, like, this is my favorite way to experience all these games, and just seeing, like, a regular-ass copy of any of the 4 costing, like, $80 or more used is just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I don't know, hopefully I'm wrong, hopefully they listen to the fans, but I don't know. Spike Chunsoft US is like such a weird fucking subsidiary. It's like Arc System works when they publish games in the West. It's like, oh yeah, they do other games besides Guilty Gear, but I guess no one buys them, so okay, whatever. It's like, does anyone remember that Kill la Kill game that came out on PS4 and Switch?
I bought it.
Yeah, like that's their only other game they've done, and like finding a physical one of that isn't expensive, but it's because like no one really cared.
Yeah, I bought it on Switch because it was on sale, super cheap, and my boyfriend had just gotten into Kill la Kill, and he was like, "Please play this with me."
I would love to have known why that game was so late to come out. Like that always seemed like so weird. Of like, that's a perfect combination in terms of like who's making it, who's putting it out, and how it looks. But that just whole project seemed like 10 years too late.
Yeah, it was really weird because like it did feel weird to me that Kill la Kill for a long time basically had nothing outside of just the show, despite the fact that it's a super popular show and probably the most popular thing Trigger's ever made.
Did they? Because there's not a manga based on anything, is there?
Not that I know of, no.
If there was, it'd probably be like the fucking shitty Danganronpa manga where it's not even based off the game, it's based off the shitty anime. It's like, who asked it? Like, no one has ever looked at a manga and saw that it's called, like, blank blank, the animation, the manga. Like, no one wants the Naruto animation manga. They just want the fucking manga. So it's just like the weirdest thing of like, why? Like, who do you think like is going to like buy? It's not even like those weird early 2000s. Like, do you remember Ani manga where they would just take JPEGs from manga and just put text bubbles over it?
I did not. I've never seen that, but that sounds amazing.
It's like the weirdest thing ever. They were like printed on kind of nice paper, and I think I fucked up. I think I said they're JPEGs of mangas. They're JPEGs of the anime. Yeah. So like. I remember them always being there were Yu-Gi-Oh ones and there was like Inuyasha ones. They're like the weirdest fucking thing. And none of them were ever popular enough to finish. So if anyone's like, listen guys, I can't do the black and white thing. I gotta wait for the Ani manga to be out. Like they've just never finished a story in their life, I guess.
Amazing.
Oh my god. Well, we've gone on some ups and downs with this trajectory. Do you want to get into some questions?
Sure, if you want.
We'll start on a light one. I liked that. This is from the Facebook group. I was thinking to myself why this question would be asked. It's not a particularly hard question, but it was just asked so fast after I posted, "Hey, do you guys have any questions? I have to include this." Jacob Bakamatai says, "What do you think about black people?" To which I just go, why? But then also followed up by, obviously, like, all people are, like what I think about black people would be what I think about Asian people, or Indian people, or white people. It's like, it depends on the person. But I just couldn't get over, like, the person saw this in an SMT group, like, publicly on Facebook, and his first question, what do you think about black people? Like, I'm not gonna have like some woke answer here. I don't know. Like, Michelle, do you have anything like any differing answer? But I had to put this out there.
I don't know. They saw it was gonna be two Persona 5 fans talking. They were like, they got to be racist. I need to catch them
if
on
they're
this.
not pedophiles, they gotta be racist. I don't see a BLM. I don't see BLM tagged in my post, so I must be racist.
It's on my Twitter. I'm fine.
Yeah, you're covered. I'm not. I don't even do. I'm not even. I'm too much of a chicken to even do my own pronouns. So I'm clearly playing the most dangerous game.
That's why my bio is fun. My bio has every pronoun in it.
Do you have Zer? Do you have like ZHER?
No, mine just says he/she/they.
You're covered either way. Speaking of he/she/they, not really though. Cole Carey says, would you want to see notable changes with Nocturne HD, or do you think they should have the same clunky game as it ever was?
I mean, I've never played it, so I can't speak much to it. I guess my instinct would just be like quality of life stuff is what I'd want from it, but I also, like I said, I know nothing about Nocturne.
I get to be the sad realist in the room of like everything I've seen of the game, because they've been showing a lot of the Japanese version recently. They're gonna have very minor changes, like quality of life stuff in terms of the actual game mechanics are definitely not gonna be there, just because that stuff's a lot harder to implement. But also you risk alienating fans. Like there's a reason the easiest difficulty mode added in, Merciful, is DLC. Because there were probably going to be fans who, if they saw that added into their game on default, they'd be like, easy mode. What is this?
Casuals.
Yeah, the casual list of casuals. Damien Kurt says, in regards to DLC with Nocturne HD, what kind of DLC do you expect Atlas to do, similar to the 3DS games where they would basically do DLC quests where like, hey, play this random dungeon for more XP or money or demons and stuff?
I'm not entirely sure, because my guess for like SMT5 was, I was like, all right, I'm gonna be able to buy a Shujin Academy uniform.
God, you're right. That's so sad but true.
I mean, I'll buy it. I'm a coward. I'm gonna be able to dress my character up like Joker. TMS did it, so But
I would pay money if we get to a point where TMS Joker is like bad box art Mega Man. Like, I hope that specifically TMS Joker becomes like his own costume one day. Because like I love that fucking game, but my god, like that costume is so bad for him, and I don't know why. Like every other costume looks great on everybody. Like the Strange Journey costume looks amazing. The Walter costume looks great. Like all the different costumes look absolutely fantastic. But just for whatever reason, Joker's mask looks like a like box art made from like stock photo images.
I think the thing with Joker's mask is partly it was clearly made to fit his hair perfectly, so it just looks weird on anybody else.
Looking at you, Mies. Any Mii characters with the Joker mask, please run away now. Vincent Santos says, regarding SMT5, what new systems or mechanics would you like to see implemented? For me, I keep always kind of going back to I definitely want to see something new as opposed to something brought back from older games. Yeah. I guess if I had to pick in terms of weird systems or mechanics, and I guess this isn't technically wholly new, I really hope the ambiguous look of the protagonists we've seen so far definitely hints that we might get male or female options.
Yeah.
But that's just like the most bare bones one I can do. Like, is there anything that kind of stands out for you, systems or mechanics wise, you'd like to see?
I don't know, because, like, my only experience with the series is Persona, so, like, it's hard for me to say, and just, if the game, I know it won't, but if the game played identical to Royal, I'd be happy. I know it won't, and it shouldn't.
I was gonna say, that would be, so disappointing to me.
I'd be fine with it. It's my favorite video game ever, but that's not what they should do for literally every other human being on planet Earth.
And I thought the black people question was the most insulting thing I'd heard so far this episode. You've now topped it.
I want to play this new cool spin-off of Persona 5 called Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, okay?
Michelle, I have very bad news for you. Scramble does not play like Royal.
Damn it!
I keep playing it like turn-based, and it just doesn't work. Like, I'm running out of SP.
It doesn't work.
Erico says, "Do you feel that the 3DS as a console slowed down the franchise performance-wise?" I think this is a great question.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would say I don't think it slowed it down performance-wise. I think it definitely gave Atlas as a company more leeway in terms of doing lower budget, less ambitious games, which really sucks because they started the system with Devil Survivor Overclocked, which was taking a lot of what they'd done for the DS and kind of bringing that in and doing new things. But if you look at all the SMT games on there, even with stuff like 4 and Apocalypse adding in their 3D character models, like at their core battle systems, 4, Apocalypse, Strange Journey, and Soul Hackers are all straight up old school 90s ass SMT, which isn't a bad thing, but definitely they're kind of just doing the rinse and repeat again, hence by all the character assets still being swapped over so much. So I would have liked to see more things kind of get, like, kind of breaking them out of their comfort zone. Like, I think Persona Q stands out as like one of the few edge cases of a game published by Atlas on the 3DS that was them stepping out of their comfort zone, because even though that was coming from a series that primarily uses a lot of 2D assets, like there's still a lot of 3D asset use model in Persona Q and Q2 especially. Yeah. I don't know. What about you? How do you feel like looking back now that the 3DS with Atlas is kind of done? Do you feel like they did the most with it, or do you feel like it kind of held them back?
I don't know, because like it goes back to the thing I keep saying. I know very little about SMT, so it's hard for me to say. I mean, just looking at Q is basically like my only real point of reference because it's the one I liked, and like Q to me is the type of thing that like I would love to see that game HD-ified.
Oh my god, that's like gotta be the easiest like moneymaker decision of like I cannot believe they've not just combined Q and Q2, throw it on Switch for $40 and just like call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, I would love a pack of those two games, and ideally dub Q2. I would love that. But I don't know, because I don't know. I mean, it's an RPG on the 3DS, so like I guess there's only so much they could do with it, and I feel like doing it on 3DS obviously was I can only assume was a decent money decision since the 3DS printed money, but.
See, that was the funniest thing is, like, the 3DS printed money if you were Nintendo and a couple of other specific
games.
Like, there's no SMT game on 3DS that fucking sold like gangbusters. The only exception to that being Persona Q, which isn't even an SMT game.
Yeah.
Shoutouts, by the way, to Persona Q2 and Deep Strange Journey for selling, like, hot fucking shit. But, hey, welcome to selling 3DS games in 2018, 17, and 19.
It was very funny. It's kind of sad because when that came, because like when Q2 first got teased at like Super Live, it was like the 3DS wasn't dead yet. It just kind of turned into an unfortunate timing.
I've been in the situation of if we are in a post-Switch world, the 3DS was dead for me by then.
Fair enough.
It's not even like me being like elitist or whatever for it, because like the way that I consider things being dead is like how much active support it's getting by other developers. Like I don't consider the Vita dead, not just because I play it all the time, but because like I just bought new games for it this week that just came out in 2020. As we mentioned earlier in the show, it's 2020 and the 3DS got its first physical game this year. And it's August.
Nice.
Couple other questions we have from Twitter. Our first one is from Fansite, who says, "What drew your attention towards Toko when first playing Danganronpa?"
So, in DR1, it was mostly just I thought she was really funny, and Genocide Jack just appealed to me. Because she was my best girl, but she wasn't my favorite character in DR1. In DR1, it was absolutely Byakuya. So, good
pairing with those two then.
Yep. They're my two favorite characters. It's like one of my least favorite ships ever. Then after being DR2, I was excited to get into UDG because I was like, oh, a game with Toko in it, more Toko. This should be good. And then it became my lifelong obsession. It was just there's multiple things about Toko and UDG. I'm a sucker for friendship stories, so that helped. And seeing Toko's growth in that game was just great. And her entire relationship with Kamaru, that's my favorite ship in the series. So I instantly fell in love with that, and Kamaru is one of my favorite characters as well. And they gave Toko thigh highs, so at that point she was perfect.
So, because I don't think we've actually properly done this, it is not a universally popular thing to say that UDG is good. There are a lot of people in the fandom who kind of, because it is such a, not step back, definitely like such a side turn in terms of how different the gameplay is. If you had to sell a Danganronpa fan who's played maybe some or none of the series, and has just said, well, I'm going to skip UDG just because I don't need to play it, like, what's your Twitter-sized sell on them for that game?
I describe UDG the same way my friend Adam describes Uncharted 4, which is if somebody asks you how good the gameplay of Ultra Despairgos is, my answer is, if you're 2 games in, who cares? You're playing a visual novel. You're here for the story, and that's kind of my thing with UDG. Is it's like, yes, it's a mediocre video game. I'll never deny that, but if you've played 1 and 2, you probably want more Danganronpa story. Just play UDG.
Also, I'll give a shout out, though. Those are, like, it's not the most visually impressive game. They have really pretty character models. Like, the animations they do for Toko and like, Kamaru, like, especially, like, Kamaru, like, one of the things I always, like, love is, like, her walking animation and just, like, idle animations are so great of, like, they totally nail her, like, character fear without seeming like total crybaby.
Yeah, the way those characters are animated, the way the models look, like, UDG is clearly not a perfect looking game, but because of the way the characters models look and just the aesthetic of the game, it doesn't really matter.
Alright, next question comes from Kirian, who says, do you think SMT5 will eventually be multi-platform or remain Switch exclusive?
I could see it eventually going elsewhere, but then, especially with the recent thing of Sega being like, wait, we can make money with ports. But I don't know. I could also see Nintendo wanting to hang on to it, so I'm not exactly sure. I think it could go either way.
So I'm in a weird boat as well, kind of with you, of the realist in me says it's going to stay Switch exclusive, but only for a couple of weird factors, and this is only assuming it sells good, not like gangbusters. So, like, I'm saying it's a safe bet. SMT5 is going to sell over 1 mil easy. Like, it's easily going to be like the best-selling base SMT game in the series. But if it does like 3 something, like crazy numbers, which I do not expect it to do at all, I could see them making a case for it eventually of like coming out on, but then we get into this weird case because by the time it releases, it's going to be amped for this of having a +1 release on the Switch Pro or something, and that's still being exclusive, and then kind of being like stuck in Royal territory of like P5 can come to any system at once right now, but the problem is we're living in a post-Royal world where Royal is still stuck under contract. So, assuming stuff like that doesn't happen, of like, for it to come to more platforms, it would have to sell P5 numbers. But for it to sell P5 numbers and not get another enhanced version on Nintendo exclusively, because Nintendo's going to have right of first refusal, which they're not going to say no to that if it sells really, really well, especially because, like, hey, like I mentioned at the top of the show, the Switch has absolute dog shit for exclusive RPGs. Yeah. So, it's tough, but I would say if it does end up coming, it's probably going to be a PC thing eventually, and then maybe PS5 by the time it finally comes out. But who knows really how well like all that stuff's going to be. Like, for the time being, I would say you have a higher likelihood of the success of SMT5 leading to more ports of it on Switch. Which is the depressing but sad answer most of the time, usually. Sorry, you can't really tell this guy's name. It's like Ozzy Ark?
Something like that.
Ozzy says, if you were trying to pull off
Ozach.
Ozach. Here we go, Ozach. Red Stained Ozach. Says, if you were trying to pull off a Danganronpa murder, what would your guys' method be?
Thank you, Adam. I don't know. I like the scissors style. I can vibe with that, but also I think it'd be a bit too obvious I did it. I'm not surprised Adam asked this. Um, I don't know. You can go first. I'll think about it.
Okay, I'm gonna do this. I would like try and do a mixture of two things, and stick with me here. I'm
Okay.
gonna combine the first murder of V3 with Five Nights at Freddy's.
All
So what I'm
right.
gonna do is I'm gonna find who I think is the mastermind. And what I'm gonna do is set up so it looks like I'm like they either got murdered by someone or whatever. So worst case scenario, even if they're not the mastermind, I'm still active in the school. And for hiding, I'm going to also make it look like a murder suicide where I also got murdered or either suicide myself, but in reality I hide inside a empty Monokuma cub suit for as long as I absolutely need to be.
See, that's more thought than I was able to put into it. My idea was get a blunt object and hit someone very hard and hope nobody figures it out.
Oh, the paranoia agent method of just running around on a pair of roller skates, beat someone with a gold baseball bat, and hope no one notices.
It's the Pecco strategy. It's gonna work.
Oh my god. It's gotta have the Pecco mask though. It doesn't work without the mask on.
Exactly.
Two
I would pin
questions.
it on Adam.
Two questions from Buff Mordecai says, and I have absolutely nothing to add to this first one, sadly. Fall Guys, good or bad? I haven't played Fall Guys only for the fact that if I was going to play it, I would play it on PS4, and I have a strict I don't pay for PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
So I haven't got to touch it, but it looks jolly. I just haven't gotten to play it.
Yeah, I haven't played it either, but just looking at it seems like exactly my kind of dumb thing that I would just love playing. So I'm probably gonna pick it up soon and probably love it and maybe stream it. I don't know.
Now, a more important question, because I'd be curious to know if you have anything to say about this or not. He also asked One Piece thoughts.
I've never actually seen One Piece. It's not really the kind of thing I'm really dying to ever watch necessarily. It's I don't know, just looking at it's not the type of thing that I seem like I'd be too into.
Can I interest you in unrealistic proportions of female characters, please?
See, now we're talking.
I don't know if you saw, there's a great tweet someone like had recently of like there was some video of like some like Asian model walking down. And She like had like the definition of like a One Piece body of like she had a 2-inch like hips and just like G-sized boobs or whatever. And I remember I saw that, it was really funny of like it's so easy to say that like, oh, women can't have like anime or whatever proportions. It's like anyone can have really any proportions you want. It's gonna look weird either way. Like I feel like the complaint shouldn't be, oh, men or women can't look like X or Y. The complaint should just be men or women probably shouldn't look like like healthily wise. They probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So for me, I love One Piece. One Piece was up there with Dragon Ball and Naruto growing up for me. I read as much of the manga as I could possibly get. I was first introduced to the series through reading monthly Shonen Jump manga issues. I played a ton of the video games. Shoutouts to, if anyone remembers, One Piece Grand Adventure or Grand Battle. I played the fuck out of those on GameCube. But no, yeah, it's not what I've been able to keep up with as much, unfortunately. I think in terms of manga, I have next to me here, I see like 75 or so. Like, so I'm already into the 70s, but I mean, I'm already like that's super behind for manga, even though that sounds really high.
Yeah.
I liked the show, but I always enjoyed reading it more. But yeah, besides that, One Piece is great. It's super jolly. It's definitely not for everybody, but it is one of those things of One Piece for me, in all the different mediums I've experienced it, it doesn't have that, oh my god, when will it end moment. Like, it's not the thing of like, it's not like Bleach. Like, for me, one of the things I would say is, like, Bleach is an awesome concept, but it was supposed to end when Rukia got saved. Like, the fact that Bleach continued after that was just like, what are we doing here? Dragon Ball, you can kind of say it, but I give Dragon Ball such a nostalgia pass, I can't really be fair with it. But for me, Naruto definitely by the time you're ending Naruto leading into Boruto, you get to that point of like, oh my god, all right, we're dragging out this war a little bit too long, guys, but it does have enough highs to make it worth it. Whereas One Piece for me is always like just lighthearted and whimsical enough that like the way they've changed it up, and I think it helps for them because they very like specifically name their arcs. Like there are arcs in One Piece for a reason. Like their stories have a beginning, middle, and end. Like they're like people are like unless you're memeing the series, no one's looking at One Piece and going like, "Where's the One Piece?" like no one's reading One Piece for the One Piece anymore. Like you're just there for all the different characters in the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like I legitimately had to like remind myself like, oh yeah, like obviously like it says it like especially for watching the show, it's like the show is about looking for treasure, but it's not really like it's the basically what I'm saying is, and please somebody clip this out, One Piece is the Seinfeld of anime. It's about nothing. It's actually about nothing.
I believe it.
Jason Stu says favorite trial from each game. That's really hard. I might, just because I'm gonna have to limit this because I legitimately might have trouble otherwise, let's just do our favorite trial from all of them. Because if we do from each, then I'm going to have, like, a Sophie's Choice moment.
So just, like, my favorite trial in the series?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think, because, like, it's probably... It's from 2, I just don't know which one.
Interesting.
Because it's probably... It's got to be Trial 5 DR2.
It's like the most anime the series ever probably got, but man, it's a really great ending.
Yeah, I mean, I also have to... Trial 6 is also super good, and then Trial 2 is my Fui Pico arc that I love so much, so...
Oh man. Sorry, I'm just now thinking about Trial 5 from 2, and it's really... Alright, so mine is like... I don't know if it's really even fair enough to say it's a nostalgia pull, but like... I love everything about V3 Trial 1, like, so much. I love that twist. I loved that, like, just setup of that whole chapter. And the fact that, like, basically the Metal Gear Solid 2 moment happening within a trial was just handled so well for me. Like, one of the reasons, like, I love V3 so much is I feel like it's not a game that has an oh fuck twist moment. It's a game that in every chapter had an oh fuck twist moment, and I really liked it for that. It did the impossible ask of making me love every character while at the same time asking me to play as a different character while still liking him. Because I distinctly remember, without really getting into too much spoilers, of like when I'm introduced to Shuichi for the first time, he feels so vanilla.
Yeah.
That like it's almost like, wow, you're like you're unequivocally the worst character in the whole cast so far, which is really saying a lot compared to the ultimate tennis guy. So
yeah.
And but then like the humbleness too of like very few trials have such a somber ending to them.
Yeah.
As the ending to that, and what I'll always remember is one of my favorite things. I even have it like saved as a video. Is going into the piano room at the end of Trial 1 and hearing Claire de Lune is so powerful. It's like, fuck. And then you have the realization of this was the start of the game. You're like, God, Jesus!
Because, I mean, I have my fair share of issues with V3, but, like, Trial 1 is absolutely my favorite part of the game. And, like, I know there's the people who hate that Kaede died and hate Shuichi, but, like, for me, it was just, like, I that's like my favorite thing about the game. Like, I don't get me wrong, I love Kaede, she's great, but like Shuichi is probably, in my opinion, the best character in the game, and I adored just the way that switch was done. The part where you actually do switch, where everyone else disappears, it's just Kaede and Shuichi talking.
Oh, it was great. Like, I actually recently showed it to my fiance recently, just so she could kind of like, just because like I always love how in every trial everything is voiced, and I think it makes it really cinematic. So I showed her the trial and stuff for it, just for her to get an idea for it. And yeah, that character switch moment of like of like watching it was so fun, of like her slowly realizing that no one else was around, it was just the two of them talking, and how
Yeah.
like that transition is just so smooth and like expertly done.
Yeah, and the way like all like the UI stuff is done, it's really cool.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, that one's probably my favorite. But there are so many good ones, and man, I wish I had the time or the avenue. Like one of these days, I need to just like compile all my friends together who either love or hate V3, so we can talk about it. Because like I like so strongly love how much people hate V3, because like like the quick little thing I will say without getting into spoilers for of like why I love it and why I think it being so hated doesn't, like, it's not a detriment to the game, is it does it on purpose. Like, at no point when you're beating that game are you like, oh, dude, this is terrible. What were they thinking? Like, no, they did that so you would get mad. Like, the reason you had that so many people have either a positive or a negative visceral reaction is why I love it so much. Of just, like, no other game kind of has that in such a weird delivery. Like, at least I can't think of any game ending that just sort of does like, hey, we're gonna pull off this band-aid really, really hard, and if you guys like what comes on afterwards, great, but a lot of you probably won't. And also one of the things with it is, like, even though like you say it's like your least favorite in the thing, like, was for you personally, was there any moment of beating V3 where you're like, oh, I wasted my time? Like, do you regret playing the whole thing?
I do not regret playing it, even if parts of it make me upset and I don't like major parts of that game. But I never regretted playing it. Like there was still enough about the game that I really liked. It was just, I don't know, V3 was more a thing that I started to dislike more the more I thought about it, I guess. But
well, Danganronpa tangent aside, our last thing to see, we got 3 questions left. This one I hope to God makes sense to you, because I definitely do not get it. Crosspad Kid says, do you have your passport?
I don't think, no. I don't know. I'm worried about what that means, but
oh, you don't know what that means?
No, I don't.
I think he's deporting you soon.
Damn it.
Next one, he says, pancakes or waffles?
I'm a waffle person.
Waffle all
Absolutely.
the way. And also,
right, cool.
I'm very, very biased because I did like 5 years of this show with somebody named Waffle, so I'd be just a little biased. And then, okay, I don't even know how old you are, so I'd love to even know if this even resonates with you at all.
Yeah.
It says, opinions on Sam and Max. Do you even know who Sam and Max are? Because I feel like you might be too young for that.
Well, I play Poker Night too, so.
Oh no, that might be worse. Your only exposure is Poker Night.
Yeah, pretty much, because like Sam and Max seems like, because yeah, I'm 19, so like I didn't exactly grow up with that. Sam and Max does seem like the kind of thing I'd love, and I've always wanted to get into it. I just never have.
That's just like so funny to me. For just like I just love it's like how have you experienced, like, imagine like how have you experienced Danganronpa? They'd be like, through Twitter. Like, no. Anything else, please.
I've experienced Danganronpa exclusively through Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Honestly, I'd be down with that. If someone said,
oh, yeah.
Spencer, I need to experience Danganronpa 1, my choices are Crypt of the Necrodancer or the anime. I'd go just play Necrodancer.
Play Crypt.
has better remixes anyway.
Yep.
So,
what could be wrong with it?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, one of my fun little things is I love how many weird crossovers Danganronpa like has in it. My favorite crossover will still be to this day. In the Japanese version of Terraria, it was published by Spike Chunsoft. They added in Monami and Monokuma.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so if you ever just want to play with like a little officially licensed Terraria, Monokuma, or Monami, that's a thing, I guess.
I love Terraria, so hell yeah.
But yeah, so for me, Sam and Max, I was late in terms of, I was born 93, so I was definitely not a PC gamer at the time those were really happening, but actually, in the era of the last official season, like the ones that Telltale did, I got into the series through that, and through a lot of weird nostalgia, it led to me watching the old cartoon from the 90s and then that led me to playing a couple of the old PC games on my uncle's laptop growing up. Whereas I've played through most of them. I don't think to completion, but I really really like the series, and that's definitely one of those old like Lucasfilm point and click series that really really hold up for me. But like in terms of the actual point and click games from that era, I really played. I never even played like the really popular ones, like Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle, or Grim Fandango until like their PlayStation ports a couple years ago. So yeah, like I think really the only ones that kind of stood out to me growing up was like I played like The Fate of Atlantis, the old Indiana Jones one back in the day. But yeah, point and click for me was always a series that I have a certain level of nostalgia for, but I was born just at the cusp of it kind of dying, so all of it has been experienced as I've been older. But I still enjoy it, and especially if you're a fan. Actually, I guess kind of in a similar boat because you're such a big Danganronpa fan. What's your experience with Virtue's Last Reward?
I know basically nothing about that.
So how have you not been tempted to play it? I'm curious, just because like those series are like so like kind of like paralleled with each other, especially just because of how similar the developers are.
Honestly, I think I've vaguely heard the name. I know basically nothing about it.
That's
pretty
amazing.
much it.
Like they are really 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 good. So like if you want to experience them, they're on just about everything that Danganronpa is also on, and all you have to do is buy 2 titles. There is the Nonary games, which is a remake of the first game to make it all voice acted and new art assets. So that one is really, really good because the only other way to play it before was an iOS and Android port or DS, which has some pluses and minuses for it, but the HD one, like everything else, just pretty much got fixed for me. But yeah, like if you want to like check it out, like I swear they're like dirt cheap all the time, and if you like. A lot of the kind of like either horror elements or visual novel like kind of twists and turns for it, I cannot recommend those games enough.
Alright, I might look into that.
And I mean, let's be real, there's not going to be another game anytime soon, so having a whole nother like there are a lot of great visual novels that I could recommend to people, but like when someone like comes off of something like Danganronpa, there's not an immediate like, oh cool, now do this series outside of VLR.
See, because my thing with that was like, because I played 1, 2, and Ultra Despair Goes for Danganronpa, and I was like, okay, I still want to play visual novels, but I don't have the money for V3 right now. Is there anything free? And then I remembered a game called Kato Shoujo existed, and then that became my obsession for the rest of my life as well.
So, what's your experience been with other visual novels out of curiosity? Because for me, Danganronpa definitely sparked a trigger in my head of like, oh, I do like visual novels. Because Danganronpa wasn't my first visual novel I ever played. That was P3P. But that was like definitely my first one where it kind of clicked for me of like, oh, I could like this series. So like, I own every visual novel at least released in English on Vita, and I've imported quite a few and played like on other platforms. But like for me, I'll play basically like anything and everything, especially just because like there are so many different types of visual novels, like from weird and kind of out there. Like, are there other series that really stick out to you?
Because I mean, even though it's not a visual novel, my introduction to that type of game was Persona, of just like something that's so dialogue and story driven. Other than that, though, I haven't really. I've always wanted to, but I haven't really played that much in terms of visual novel outside of Danganronpa, other than like I just mentioned, Kato Shoujo. I mean. One of the games that's on my backlog to play is I do want to get Ace Attorney Trilogy, because that's like the big one. But yeah, I've just not really had that much of an experience with the series, like that genre, even though I do want to.
Okay. Yeah. So if there's anything I could do to put it to like the top of the list for you and anyone out there listening, yeah, the Virtue's Last series, not Virtue's Last, that's the second game. The Nonary games is a great place to start because that has both 1 and 2 of the trilogy. And Zero Escape is the real one. I don't know why I kept doing VLR for the whole thing. But yeah, so God love SEO friendly names like that. Thanks, Japan. Yeah, all the weird ones. Like, it's really funny. Without trying, I almost have like every one of like the top 10 like rated visual novels of all time without really actually trying. I've realized recently because like I've been playing a lot of Utawaru Ramono. I have Muv-Love. I have there's there's another series that's really popular that I'm totally fucking blanking on. Basically, the weirder name they have, the more likely they are to be like the most popular one ever. But it's so funny to me, like how many different series are like, oh, this is like, because like for a great example is Muv-Luv is, I think still to this day the highest rated visual novel of all time, but specifically Muv-Luv Alternative, which is the third game in the franchise, well, at least in terms of a trilogy. There are like other spin-off games and stuff. The first game and the second game are like super campy, super hokey anime BS, but you have to play them for the context to enjoy the last one. And the last one is like it elevates it all so much that it makes worth like playing like the tropiness of the other two games like totally bearable.
Yeah.
All right, well that is about it. I cannot thank you enough for sitting here and rambling with me about visual novels and other things for this long. So thank you for coming on the show and listening to our weird questions.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I had a ton of fun.
So where would you like people to find you online if you are so inclined?
Okay, so I am Señorish everywhere, Senorish. Currently, my big thing that I do mostly is live streaming on Twitch. Over there, I just kind of play a variety of things. I play a lot of roguelikes. I freaking love stuff like Spelunky, Darkest Dungeon, FTL, Binding of Isaac, that kind of thing.
Spelunky 2, so
yes,
close!
That is the only thing I cared about in State of Play, and I screamed. I'm extremely excited about Spelunky 2. I will probably stream that when I get the chance. Other than that, I just kind of stream a variety of things, and one of the things I have to get back to streaming is actually Ultra Despair Girls, because I was doing that and just replaying that game because I needed my dose. Other than that, I'm on Twitter. I'm pretty active on there. I'm currently on Twitter. I am continuing to show my love for Toko, as I always do, and also getting mad at people who say Has-Been Hotel is homophobic. That's my life right now.
What an interesting turn that went.
It's real fun. I hate people. Other than that, I have a YouTube channel. I like to pretend I make videos. One day I'll return to that if you want to subscribe and be there when it happens. But, if you want YouTube content of me, go subscribe to Ozziac, because that's where I actually am on YouTube.
You're the behind the scenes opinion giver.
I'm the one who contributes ideas to the videos, and then everyone gets mad at because I said On was the best Persona 5 character.
It's okay. Well, I mean, we're all allowed our own opinions and whatnot. I'm sure that I have. I don't know. I'm trying to think of if I have an unpopular. Oh, I have one, and that kind of actually leads into a question I wanted to ask you. I think calling Persona 5 Royal the game of the year in 2020 is actual blasphemy. One of the things I would ask you, just because I don't even know how many actual games from this year you've played, where are you at game of the year wise in terms of like checking? I like to ask people this just because of how weird of a year this has been for releases.
Because for me, my thing with it is I don't have that much that I've played, because I've always kind of been broke, and I'm moving, so that doesn't help.
Let me tell you, as someone who's moved out for the first time, moving, not cheap.
Yeah, so there's that. I'm very extremely fortunate that my parents have agreed to pay the first few months of rent while I'm sort of getting situated.
In the meantime, let me introduce you to my OnlyFans. Only Señorish right here. And it's literally just a link to your Twitch with the paywall in front of it.
I mean, I haven't started it yet, but I am eligible for affiliate, so I can start making money off of Twitch soon.
I was so ready for you to be like, actually, I do have an OnlyFans.
I do have an OnlyFans. It's just I post pictures of Katawa Shoujo and Ultra Despair Girl screenshots.
I've had so many moments of joking about OnlyFans to then finding out friends of mine have OnlyFans. It's like the weirdest thing. I'm like I had one recently. I was talking to a friend and be like, oh yeah, dude. So yeah, I just got out of like the situation. Like money's kind of rough, and I'm like, man, time to start up the OnlyFans. And I'm like, I did just start it up last night actually.
My freaking, cause I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Adam had an OnlyFans.
I mean, I don't want to say he doesn't have one, but I'm
it
just
seems
saying,
on brand. I don't know. He started a Patreon. That's the same thing.
It seems on brand. the Aussie brand of OnlyFans and Wattpad accounts.
You'd be surprised. He is the type of person to do that extremely ironically.
Oh my god! I'm sure OnlyFans audience are very receptive to straight guys getting on there and be like, "What do you guys want? Just pay me, I'll do it. I don't care."
Yep, he's gonna do it.
Oh my god!
He would start an OnlyFans just to post stick figure drawings.
Let's be real. Someone would pay for them. Someone would be on there, be like, "I want you to draw me like your stick figures, please. Here's $20."
I don't know. There's people who give him $20 a month on Patreon. Who knows?
Oh my god. The wonderful world of making money in 2020. No one knows how, but it has to happen eventually.
He's doing it.
So OnlyFans side conversation is it. So where are you at in terms of what is your 2020 game of the year?
Well, it's funny since what you just said, but honestly, because I haven't played that much, it's Persona 5 Royal. It's my favorite video game ever made.
So do you think there are games that are either not out yet or you haven't played that might take your interest away of it?
The only thing, I mean, I'll probably still say Royal's my game of the year, no matter what, just because it's my favorite game ever. I probably wouldn't if that wasn't the case. Like, if I loved it, but it wasn't my favorite video game ever, I probably wouldn't just because it is a remake. The only other thing I can think of...
That's a very bold word to call Royal. I would not call it a remake, personally. That is the definition of a port with new stuff for me. But just because, like, I don't know, man.
Whatever term to use
when I'm looking at those assets in Kichijoji and they look like they belong on the PS2, I'm like, come on, guys. This is only on PS4. Can we bump up the quality a little bit, please?
Yeah. The only other thing I can think that's coming is just Spelunky 2, because I adore Spelunky.
I would love nothing more for you to message me like come September or like October and just be like, yeah, P5's dead. It's now Spelunky 2. It's the goatee. Like, that would make me so happy. You have no idea.
It won't happen, but it'd be funny.
Like, it was so funny for me. Like, my whole game of the year thing has been I started the year. I guess unironically it was TMS just because it was January, but then Scramble took the high spot. Royal didn't overtake Scramble, but it did come close. And then once I played Final Fantasy VII Remake like immediately after Royal, I was like, oh my god, like how could somebody play both of these games and go, nope, it's got to go to the PS3 port. But I know like obviously those are two very, very different games. I had this weird like thought recently of whether you think Final Fantasy VII Remake is a good game or not. Soundtrack-wise, I don't think any other game has beaten Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, that game's soundtrack still kills. Like, actually legally should get in trouble kills.
I mean, I haven't played FF7 Remake. My only real experience... And, like, I've listened to a decent bit of the soundtrack, and yeah, it's extremely good. Of course, I will continue to be Persona 5 simp and say that Royal is my favorite game soundtrack because I'm very basic and yeah.
I hope you have not spoiled yourself for the soundtrack of Scramble, have you?
A bit. I mean, my thing with Persona soundtracks, I'm willing to listen to it before the game comes out. Only exception.
I'm a soundtrack spoilers guy. I can't do that.
My only exception is I will always for Persona, skip the credits theme on listening it until I beat the game, which I'm glad I did for Royal, because, yeah, hearing Our Light for the first time after beating that game, it hits.
I would say it's way better than Vanilla's ending song.
I love Stars and R's, but Our Light's just too good. It beat my previous favorite Persona ending theme. It beat Nevermore for me. So
I just love that we're now in a world where I Believe is a song that I can listen to on repeat over and over and over like that. That when I had the context of hearing I Believe, it was like, wow, this song hits so much different. It was like it was just so good. But no, I really, really would be curious to see what you think of, like, I don't know how Scramble gameplay-wise is going to hit a lot of people, but soundtrack-wise alone, it's amazing how much better that actually is than the new stuff and even the original soundtrack in P5. On top of the fact of, like, as a fan of the series, they have so many nods and remixes and, like, rearrangements. It's... like the team at Koei Tecmo just fucking killed it with that game soundtrack.
Yeah, because like, I mean, I Believe is now my favorite video game song ever, but Daredevil and Counter-Strike are so good for me. Daredevil I listen to so often. I adore that.
Okay, so the other weird question I kept forgetting to ask you: what is the origin of Señorish?
Yeah, so basically it's kind of it's an evolution of names, because basically Mr. Senor was what I used to go by, and that was
just Mr. Mister.
Yes, it's a very funny name whenever I realized what it meant, because that is a nickname that my dad gave me when I was very young. That is what he's called me ever since I was like a baby.
That's a great dad name, by the way.
Yeah, he always used to call me like Mr. Senor, and I ended up using the username as a little kid because it was my Webkins login. And I just kind of grew attached to the name, so I used it for Steam. I used it for everything. But once I eventually made a YouTube account, it was taken. So, and one of the autofill suggestions YouTube gave me was just adding the ish to the end, and I was like, I like the sound of that. So Mr. Señorish became my thing everywhere. And then I started questioning my gender, so I became Señorish, and I just ditched the Mr. And now here I am with the name Señorish being a very self-fulfilling prophecy to how I now feel about my gender, as I don't care.
That's a great origin story. I very much appreciate that.
I've just stuck with it forever. I'm too attached to it forever.
Listen,
so.
I'm a grown man whose original username, I think maybe less than 5 people in the world actually know the context behind Torchwood4SP. Like,
yeah.
It's definitely a username that you can tell I made in middle school in a public library, but I have such like an attachment to that name and what all the little, like, 'cause like everything of it has a meaning to it, and I love it so much. Of just like, even if like you're not a Doctor Who fan, which becomes less and less popular as time goes on, it's just like one of those things of like, I don't know, like I've never had a sense of like cringe from that own nickname, just because like whether it be the history or just like why I made it the way it is, like it's just like such a weird thing for me of like, no, like I can see myself being like over 50 and still keeping this tag for like everything.
Yeah, because that was my thing, like because like I don't think I had any form of, because I basically had no internet presence as a little kid until I had the name Mr. Senor, so it's just always been who I am.
Oh, you know what? I don't think I've ever told this. This might be an SMTN exclusive.
Ooh.
I'm trying to think of the specific one. Before I was Torchwood4SP online, my online gamer tag for like everything, and just because you dropped Webkins, I'll say that I think the origin of this came from my Gaia Online account. It was Naruto _Kun _15. And I'll let you know, I wasn't 15 when I made it. I don't know where the 15 came from, but I just simped Naruto so hard at the time. Like, this would have been like, I think like elementary school or something.
Yeah.
I was like, now that's a username. And I've never stopped loving Naruto. I didn't change it because I got embarrassed of Naruto, but it was just one of those weird moments for me of like, I think I got to a point where I was like, I needed to make something else, and I didn't want it to be Naruto-kun. And it was just one of those things like, no, I need to base this off a spin-off to a British drama.
Yeah.
Now this I'll use for the rest of my life.
Yeah, the only other username I could think that I had before this was just, I played Brawl and my name was Michael. That was it. I played online Brawl, and it was just my normal name because that was the name of my me.
It's just BM for short.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. I'll let you know if you want to hook up with people RPing as Hinata. Very easy thing to just go around calling yourself Naruto-kun. It just brings them all right to you in the year 2006.
I bet.
Oh my god. Well, if you would like to find actually me online, you can find my personal Twitter at Torchwood4SP. You can follow the podcast at SMT Network. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel by searching Shin Megami Tensei Network or Torchwood4SP or Spencer Presley. Besides that, you can join the Facebook group by going to facebook.com/groups/SMT Network. There's also a Facebook page if you don't want to have to interact with the group. But hey, there's over 7,000 people. Don't be scared. I promise at least 5,000 of them are cool. I can give that one at least as like a don't worry about it.
Nice.
But yeah, thank you guys for listening to the show so much. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad that all it took was for both of us to be moving. Through the random background noises I was getting in your microphone, I'm assuming you've moved into the basement of a playground. There were so many children out playing outside by you.
I was
just have
wondering if you could hear that.
every time I was like, how close is his apartment to a playground?
Basically, my apartment, basically right outside my window, this apartment, like, complex type thing. It's basically like just a bunch of different buildings. They're all like 3 stories high.
Amalgamation. It looks like the housing structure of a Blade Runner.
Yeah, basically just right outside there, this place has a pool, and that's what I'm hearing.
Oh my god. Well, at least somebody can find some solace in it. I always appreciate like when listening to a podcast and there's like outside noises kind of there.
Yeah.
Like I loved I always love recording shows where you can like hear like whether it be like outside, like just kind of like basically ASMR friendly ambient noises, like something to go to sleep to. Like people talking in the background, not always fun to have on, but like hearing people like going through a hallway or like being in a park, like those always make it feel like more authentic.
Yeah. And I don't exactly have good acoustics in this room that's just boxes and a mattress, so...
You know what? You'd be surprised how good a mattress will help with acoustics.
I mean, I can believe that, yeah.
Alright, well, before we go, do you have anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
Adam, I know you're listening. Screw you. And play Kawa Shoujo, it's free. That's basically all I got.
Alright, everybody. Well, thank you again for listening so much, and I will see you all next week for hopefully something with news, because as you can tell by how much we talked about State of Play this week, not a lot of news this week.
Spelunky, too.
That's true, yeah, it was the Spelunky cast.
Yay!
Alright, goodbye, everybody.